Here we go.
Okay. Good evening. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Finance and Governance Committee for January 23rd, 2024. Roll call and posting the agenda.
Member Tehran,
Here.
Chair Zaragoza.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on January 16th, 2023.
Thank you.
2024. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's help me salute the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, any public comments on items not on the agenda?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. Our next item is item C, City Clerk Department approval of the minutes. That the Finance Governance Committee approve the minutes of January 9, 2024 regular meeting. Council members, committee member.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to give my appreciation to the city clerk and the assistant city clerk for their work on the minutes. I know there were a lot of moving parts for this particular version of the minutes for that meeting, and so just wanted to give my public thanks to both of you for your work on that and anyone else who helped out with it.
Thank you, Member Tehran.
Yes, and with that, I'll move to approve the minutes as presented.
Great, and I'll second that. Thank you. Please vote.
Motion carries 2-0.
Thank you. Our next item is D1 reports. The City Attorney Department, the subject consult procedures, manual review, recommendation the Finance Governance Committee initiate the periodic review of the consult procedures manual and provide direction to staff regarding the possible revisions of the manual. And this, Mr. Fisher, and we do have Councilman Basua join us. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mayor. Please let the record show that Member Basua has joined the meeting at 5:08 p.m.
And per your notes, I have a Rano Ornajo, excuse me. He's going to be on Zoom. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Zaragoza, Ronald Ovejo is available virtually.
He is on?
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and.
Do you want to take his comment after I do my little intro here?
Okay, let's go ahead. Let me have our city attorney make his introduction, and then we'll call him. Okay, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mayor. Mm-hmm. So this will be very brief. The procedures manual, as I've stated before, is not intended, as is stated in the manual itself, is not intended to cover all aspects of council business. We don't want to get into an exercise of trying to duplicate what state law requires. Then it would turn into a very big volume that's not very useful as just a general reference guide. So within the procedures manual, as it's been since I think 2016 or so, it's to be reviewed periodically and every 2 years, ideally. And what we're doing today is just kicking off that biennial review. And the goal here is to take any suggestions, proposals that people may have. I have noted a few things that need to be updated so far. And we will schedule follow-up meeting or meetings as necessary to complete the review and eventually get to a point where the committee can agree upon changes to recommend to take to the council.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll continue after. Okay, Ronald, is he available now to speak?
Yes, he's available. Ronald, please press *6 to unmute, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. Can I be heard?
Go ahead, Ronald, we can hear you.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Zaragoza and committee members. My name is Ronald Arwejo, and I look forward to the committee's review of the council procedures. As a whole, I believe that the manual strives to combine the ideal of deliberation and efficiency. Regarding the general procedures, I believe this has the most need for update. One, it would be in order to reflect the most realistic actions of the presiding officer with language that is strict enough to hold decorum, but still flexible to engage member deliberation. I think it can be noted that there have been a few times when procedures became lax, leading to inefficient and longer meetings. Two, for the public comment portion on non-agendized items, the current procedure is an allotment of 30 minutes and then anything extra after the meeting. Now, due to Measure M, the chair can no longer reduce the time of each speaker to potentially fit within that 30 minutes. And it may be worth discussing at whether to keep it all at the beginning, at the end, as some other cities in Ventura County do, or still keep it as is. Lastly, I recommend adding Robert's Rules of Order newly revised to the list of resources in addition to the in brief edition, which is a more understandable and simple explanation of the most common procedures that happens in any meetings. To finish up, it would behoove all council members to review this of their own accord at least once a year, and for the chair, both the mayor and their respective subsidiary committee chairs to check in with their members in the middle of the year just to see if there's any confusion, lingering confusion, or to clear up or confirm the council or committee preferences within the meeting. I was able to do this as chair of the Planning Commission, and it helped me to guide and show the reasons for certain actions that I took, for the wording that I made, and to include all the preferences as possible within the confines of the rules and regulations to make it a better meeting for all. And so I'll end with that. I appreciate that the city attorney has said that there is going to be future meetings. As with the Planning Commission subcommittee, there were several meetings, and I look forward to seeing the revisions as they evolve, and I look forward to commenting them for the best efficiency and for the best content and deliberation that the committees and the council can have in the future. Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Ronald. Thank you for your input. Any additional speakers on this item, Madam Clerk, either virtually or here?
Chair Zaragoza, there's no additional speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Thank you. So we'll continue with our city attorney, give us additional information, and then we can continue from there.
Thank you, Mayor. And as I stated before, this is not a complete review on my part. I continue to look at this thing, but I do note that if you want to just follow along with what you have in your packet,
Okay.
which included the procedures manual as last adopted in 2022, on page 5, the introduction, we have facts and figures there that change periodically. So we should consider, or the committee should consider, whether we want to keep updating those with every revision to the manual, or just come up with more generic language. So, for example, we've got the dollar amount of the one of the budget figures, and I found that when I took my budget off the shelf and looked at it, that the things are stated differently from budget to budget, and if we come up with a number, and maybe it changes from CFO to CFO. They have different ways of referring to those things. Full-time equivalent employees is another number that's in there, as well as the citywide assets totaling nearly $3 billion in value. That may need to be reviewed by somebody that counts those particular beans. So one suggestion I had is it's not clear in the manual currently whether these procedures it mentions that they govern that it applies when the council acts as the successor agency, as well as the housing authority. So I've thought, well, gee, should we have some mention of the committee system here, the council committee system, and whether, except as, maybe with a provision, except as otherwise provided in the bylaws for the committees, because there are separate committee bylaws, that these rules would apply as
Because
needed.
most of the time, Steve, when we open up as under the city council, but in the same process, we're probably housing authority with successor agency and so forth.
Yeah, so that's built in already, but at the committee level,
Ah, okay.
it's not mentioned. So
Okay.
something to consider there.
We'll look at,
So then I found something that's kind of an inaccurate statement, maybe not outright wrong, but inaccurate. The paragraph on page 5 labeled City Code, second line there says, the administrative chapter of the code shall incorporate by reference the rules and procedures established herein. So it doesn't exactly do that. It does reference that it acknowledges that there are procedures to be adopted by the council by resolution, but certainly doesn't incorporate them
Right, okay.
into the city code. Does make a reference, though. That's how nitpicky I'm getting with this, so bear with me. On page 6, there's a reference at the last paragraph to the League of California Cities Guide. So this is something that's evolved over the years, and there used to actually be a guide that was accessible from the League of California Cities website. That, when I checked on this, because I was checking all the hyperlinks as well, and when I went to that one, the resources page doesn't specifically post a guide anymore. However, there is a periodic new mayors and council members conference or seminar that goes on that publishes materials that are basically a guide, but it's not accessible the way it's been written in anymore as the way it was written in the procedures manual. So that needs to be updated somewhat, just the way it's referred to.
Okay.
Here's a fun style point. I looked up every time the word state is used, and when referring to state law or the state of California, and we're inconsistent in here with whether we capitalize the S or not. So probably need to pull the California style guide off the shelf and figure out what the rule is for capitalizing that when we're referring to state or federal law versus a state board or agency, state programs and meetings, and that pops up throughout the manual.
Councilman Sharon, go ahead.
Thank you for that quick deep dive into stylization there, Mr. City Attorney. As someone who has had to have a critical eye on documents that are submitted for reports to the state or in grant applications, et cetera, you are absolutely correct. And state of California, just like city of Oxnard, city of Port Hueneme, that's the proper name, that's the proper noun, and thus, as part of the name, the state in state of California would be capitalized. However, state statute, federal and state legislation, those are kind of more generic terms, which would be lowercase, is my interpretation of that and my experience. So good catches on that. Thank you.
So I'll come back with what the California Style Manual says. There's another reference to the state legislature. So then I thought,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one,
So
too.
do we have a capital S and capital L? We'll have to see. So I will look at that and come back with more information on that one. On page 10, this is one thing that has been out of date for a while, the practice at least. Under development of agenda, At the end of that paragraph, it states that all agenda materials are posted with the agenda on the city's website and are also available after posting during normal business hours at the main branch of the public library and in the office of the city clerk. So my understanding is that the library accessibility to the agenda packet, that hasn't been happening for years. So, and in fact, the city code at Section 2-224 only requires posting of the agenda packet on the city's website and through the clerk's office, availability through the clerk's office during normal business hours.
Steve, I wonder if, Mr. City Attorney, how many people really use that, because now the agenda's online and the website and so forth. I'm just wondering how many people really use it or really go to the library for that matter. Councilman Teran.
Just off the top of my head, I would imagine that that's a fairly accurate statement, Mayor. I do know Ms. Brown, who regularly comments and attends meetings, has mentioned that she does go in person to pick up packets and review the agenda. That's just one person who comes to mind. I would imagine there might be others, but
They don't have the computer.
yeah, and wherever accessible, easily accessible by the public, whether it be the city clerk's office or the library, I believe having a hard copy version somewhere that is accessible is
still
certainly needed. What that looks like, I think that would be for us to kind of decide through this process.
Good point.
So that's a present inconsistency, though.
Right. Because it's not there.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Member Teran. The printout of the agendas and the packets are available in the city clerk's office, and Ms. Brown does pick them up there on a weekly basis.
Oh, she picks them up from there.
She sure does.
Oh, good.
You're welcome.
On page 12, as was mentioned before, there's some Measure M adjustments needed. Under public comment, the second paragraph. So here's a practice that I don't know that we follow, but the second line in that paragraph says, speaker cards will not be accepted after the beginning of the general public comment period in order to allow for fair allocation of time amongst the known speakers. So two parts to that. I don't know that we're, if we have a posted practice of, speaker cards will only be accepted up to the call of the item.
We haven't followed that.
Yeah. And then the second part of that, of course, is that we're not doing fair allocations of time anymore under Measure M.
Councilman
So,
Teran, I'm sorry, go.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. City Attorney. Just a quick question, and maybe it's for the committee or for the city attorney. I do have some notes for page 12 as well. Would we like the city attorney to finish all of his notes and then go to us?
Yes.
Okay, I
And
just
then
want
we'll
to check
go
on
ahead
that.
and comment.
Thank you.
But go ahead, Stephen. That's a good point. That after he finishes, then we can go ahead and share our information.
okay, there's another reference to limiting speaker time on, it's the second to last paragraph, unless otherwise extended or limited by the presiding officer. Each person shall limit their comments to 3 minutes on any agenda item. So, you can't limit anymore on that. Then there is a statement, a practice worth, I think that came into being after we had speakers who would put speaker cards in for every single item on the agenda.
No.
That there be a voluntary limit in place. And this was under a previous mayor, I believe, that this provision got in here. So it does state that it is voluntary, so it's not something that a speaker is forced to abide by, but the idea was that they limit themselves to 10 minutes per meeting with public comments. So I don't know that that necessarily has to change since it's voluntary. For that cumulative total of 10 minutes.
Councilman Teran.
Thank you for that. I did have that one in my notes too, and my initial reaction to that is I certainly am not a fan of limiting anybody's time if they wish to speak on every agenda item. This is the forum for the public to do so, even if they don't take their entire 3 minutes. It is voluntary, as is mentioned in the manual, but I would be more in favor of just eliminating that limitation if it were up to me. But that's just my piece of that. If we were to have something, because of Measure M now, I would imagine any kind of voluntary limitation should be a multiple of 3. So
And
12 minutes instead of 10 minutes or something along those lines.
It's a good point too. And I know in other places that I've been, they limit it to 10 minutes. They limit, or no more than so many agenda items per speaker. But it's something we can look at.
Sure.
I think it's important.
Okay.
And because of Measure M. Okay, thank you.
Moving back up to the middle of the page, there's a reference to if written materials are presented, they should be submitted to the clerk for distribution and record keeping ahead of time. We might want to specify the expected number of copies to be provided. And again, we probably couldn't impose a requirement there, but at least put a suggestion for what is expected. The following paragraph from that one, the videos, PowerPoint, or similar presentations. So that's another one where the code now through Measure M changes how that works. So we should consider how we want to word that, or just state what's required by the city code now. And then finally, and probably most importantly, there's an extra period in the last paragraph that needs to be taken out. So, Member Turan, did you have any other changes on that page before I move on?
Yes, thank you. So on page 12, in the section regarding ceremonial items, I know this has been brought up in the past, and I made a note of it at the time. The language currently reads, ceremonial items shall normally be limited to 2 items per meeting, not to exceed 5 minutes per item. I would request that we change shall to may normally be limited to 2 items per meeting. There have been times when we've had 3 or 4 items in the ceremonial calendar.
4 and 5 items.
And I think within a reasonable effort of this council, we can manage that without it being 10 items on the ceremonial calendar. And then regarding the 5 minutes per item, I would request that we just strike that statement and we can reasonably use the amount of time and manage it as we have been thus far. And I will say, on occasion, folks who watch these meetings regularly will see sometimes we'll have a member of or a former city employee who's retiring and has a number of decades of service and may have a number of speakers who want to speak on that item, or maybe the council would like to individually thank them. And it just seems that limiting that to 5 minutes in the procedures manual when we're already going to break that just doesn't seem productive to me. So just my thoughts on that, changing from shall to may and striking the time limit on that.
Councilman Basil.
I want to make sure that as we go through this process and look at this manual, that we also consider staff time when we're adding additional time. I mean, we want to be conscientious of that. We politicians like to speak a lot. And I just want to be conscientious. What if we were to leave the minutes, but then allow the mayor, or to extend that time as he sees it appropriate? Yeah, because I do want to give exactly what you just said, Councilmember Turan. We might have an employee that's been here 30 years.
Or 40 years.
And has a lot of family, and maybe people want to address it. Definitely, 100%. But I think this manual also allows us to keep us on track and keeps us moving. So I just want to be conscientious of that.
And I want to share too that in the past, we've had up 4 and 5 ceremonial items and accommodations because a particular festivity or something's coming up. And if we move it and don't have enough time for the following agenda item, it's no longer valid. So that's, sometimes we look at that too, so. And as mayor, I can also expedite the process, we can also, we don't have to read exactly every single whereas, and just in order to expedite, and I can look at that too.
Yeah, I think we could be a little bit more conscientious, because there are items definitely that require more than 5 minutes.
Exactly.
And we want to make sure we're sensitive to that.
Perfect.
But there's items that we can just, like
Summarize.
Santa Claus coming.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes.
Poor Santa, man.
Or the Easter Bunny. Or, there's just items that just require us to move along, and
So
I just wanna
moving
be
that
conscientious.
from shall to may is okay, and then keep the,
I would suggest are. Ceremonial items are normally limited to 2 items per meeting.
okay, there you go. No, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have viewed, I think we added normally in at some point in the evolution of this document to address that, but I think we have still received some members of the public complaining when we've had 3 or 4 or 5 on it.
Well, or would be good, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm supportive of those changes. Thank you. Oh, I'm still on, huh? And then, thank you. So also on page 12, this is probably minor, but just kind of an update in kind of business vernacular. Any reference to PowerPoint, which happens, I think, 2 or 3 times throughout the entire document. If we could change that to slide decks or visual notes or something a little bit more generic, where PowerPoint is certainly a Microsoft product.
Supposed to.
It's like Kleenex, I mean, we can call it what it is, but
Yeah, it's kind of like Kleenex or Xerox.
yes, exactly.
There you go.
But videos, slide decks, or similar presentations during public comment. And I was maybe thinking shall be coordinated through the city clerk and shall be provided at least, I don't know, X amount of time, or maybe not shall, or suggest, or strongly suggest
But the
they
shell's important.
be provided ahead of time. So it's clear to the public what the request is, so that it's done in a way that has the clerk's office and staff prepared for that item.
Mr. City Manager.
For the electronic media, though, I'm gonna request more stringent language for must, because we have to have IT essentially vet whatever the items are.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay, so I would like to, where there is reference to providing these things to the clerk ahead of time, have it be clear that that process needs to happen.
IT.
And what the timeline would be for that, to make sure that it's ready to go the night of the meeting.
And is there a limit for the videos? Let me see.
It would be, they're 3 minutes.
The 3 minutes. The 3 minutes. Okay, go back to the 3 minutes.
Yes. So any visual aids they have would be limited to their
3
3-minute
minutes.
comment period.
Like anything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the speaker, Mr. Araujo, did bring up regarding the 30-minute total time limit for public comments for items not on the agenda. I'm
then-
curious what our thoughts are on that.
And sometimes we need that, depends on the item, because potentially if we have 100 people and they all want to speak, there goes the entire meeting, but the 30-minute rule kind of helps us continue with what is really other agenda items that are just as important that one, and bring it up at the last other. So I think at one time or another, we're going to need that. Potentially, that's what I think, What do you think?
Fisher has something to say.
So just from my time here, I've seen it move from, I believe, the end of the agenda up to the front of the agenda. And I think the 30-minute format that we have now is by design to allow a period for public comment on non-agenda items at the front of the meeting. And if there is that situation where there are a lot of people wanting to speak on an item, that would, particularly now under Measure M, would get in the way of the regular business of the meeting
Exactly
being
right, yeah.
taken care of. Those people, if they really want to speak, can stick around to the end of the meeting, as stated in the language for the non-agenda public comment item. And all of those comments would be taken at the end of the meeting.
Because some of that business would probably need it to be approved during the council meeting in order to to activate whatever they're doing. Could be a street, could be whatever, which I think is important. Thank you.
Correct.
So what do you think of that, Don?
That does make sense. I think if it was clear that that is a limitation or a tool that we have in place so that folks are aware of it, they can know that if they show up and there's a number of people who want to speak on an item that's not on the agenda and it may exceed that 30 minutes, that it's clear that we'll
But
take comments for the first 30 minutes.
But we can share that up front.
Yes.
If we know we're going to have this type of,
It is written on every agenda
it is,
for the council meeting that
Exactly right.
that is how non-agenda public comment works.
that's exactly right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And with
So-
Measure M, I mean,
Good.
if everyone took their 3 minutes, we'd get 9 speakers.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad we had that conversation. And that's all I have for page 12. Thank you.
All right, my next note, and again, this is not some complete review that I'm intending to give. Well, as mentioned by Commissioner Arwejo, the decorum provisions, they are in several places in the document, and I would suggest taking a close look at those before the next meeting and thinking about ways to tighten them up
Okay.
so that we can address decorum issues from the audience that do come up from time to time. So I will go to and end my little review with going to the last page of the document, page 28, and that's where I checked all the hyperlinks that are currently in the document. And one thing to note is that the second big reference to the Local Government Commission, that organization apparently doesn't exist under that name anymore. So it's changed to something called CivicWell, one word, capital C, capital W. And the link still works, but it takes you to civicwell.org. So that apparently, I guess we could update what it is. I don't know how many people use that. It is an interesting website to look at, though. It's a nonprofit that focuses on not just California issues, but is active in other states. Seems to be mostly based in California, though, is headquartered in Sacramento. So that one needs to be updated. The other links are all operational. We probably want to change the description on the Political Reform Act reference. That link takes you to not just the Political Reform Act, but to the California Attorney General's Conflict of Interest homepage, I guess, that has a link to what they call the Conflicts of Interest Guide. And that document is there. It hasn't been updated since 2010, but it covers more than just the Political Reform Act. It gets into other conflict of interest rules, such as Government Code 1090, things like that. So that's all I have for today's session. And
Thank you, Steve.
certainly if people have other, members have other items that they've already noted and want to go over, now's the time for that.
Councilman Teran.
Thank you. I just have 2 more quick ones. On page 16, item 7, it's a whole section on imposing time limits on speakers, or a whole item. And I know we just talked about updates needed to be in alignment with Measure M. language. And so I just wanted to call attention to that. I'm sure it's already on the notes of staff, but just wanted to point that one out. And I don't think we can, I don't know how much purpose it serves now, given the current language of Measure M, but I just wanted to bring that one up. And then the last thing, and I made a note of this after hearing Mr. Fisher's comments regarding stylization. And I'm sure this was created in a document that has heading 1, heading 2, text body, but just some of our headings are sans serif, where the rest of the document is in serif font. And so that's just one thing.
Consistency.
I have a longtime colleague who's going to appreciate that I brought that up, I'm sure. So
That is such a great thing. You should go join our detectives.
is that what it is? Okay. And those are all my notes. Thank you very much.
Councilor Sua? Any?
I've got nothing else.
Okay, I'd like to share that I have two items that I'd like to look at, and that's on item 7, the city council, item, and it would be the third paragraph, and the city council occasionally debated whether we should take positions or not. Page 7, down in the bottom, page 7, down in the bottom. And also, I believe that that item, committee members, should coincide with the item, placing an item on the agenda on page 10, the last paragraph. So, so I'd like to share a couple of information on that. So I just want to thank our city attorney for providing this periodic city council procedure manual. And the reason I have a concern with that is because as committee members and staff, we've had the opportunity to review the city council manual. And of course, there might be some periods and commas that you took care of, which I think are really, really great, and procedures, and et cetera, et cetera. But however, I'd just like to share that on that paragraph, the powers and responsibilities of the city council states that the city council has occasionally debated whether it should take a position on broader, natural, or limited itself to purely municipal functions. So the question, by the way I understand that taking broader nature items or positions on those items is like rural items or items that really don't belong to purely to the city. But historically also, Steve and Alex, the city council has chosen not to take positions on issues outside of the immediate authority to that effect. And the propensity of the city council to involve itself in such issues reflect the personalities and the outlooks of the members who are elected for 4 years. So I think we need to work on that item. I think we need to update it to a degree that that we don't get involved in items that are very divisive for the city, items that really really don't belong to us locally. And so I believe that those items are really, really divisive. So I believe that we as council members should primarily focus on city council or priorities that affect our residents directly. For example, instead of going with the global issues and other issues that really are far away from our purview, that we ought to look more to issues like homeless issues here in Oxnard, look at issues like our youth programs, working with City Core, our senior issues, looking at how do we help with a new senior center, improving our streets, our PCI, making sure that we continue to do that, working in our parks, working with public safety, working with our employee pipelines and our priorities. And I think that every decision that we make in every policy update should be driven by commitment to enhancing the well-being of our residents. Again, as opposed to going out, worldwide and so forth, Councilmember. In this process, I think it sets aside any personal ambitions, but that might be involved in this, but to work collaborative to ensure the efficient and effective functioning of our city. And we are entrusted to do that as governors for all of us. So what I think is that there's plenty of issues that directly impact Oxnard, the community, and not all residents agree on that. And I've always said we always have 2 or 3% that will never agree with us on anything. But I think that with those issues, nonetheless, should be addressed. And we were elected to make really tough decisions on city businesses. However, we don't need to wade into a divisive matters that don't have a direct impact on our city. And by doing so, only this is unnecessary, dives us into wedging or a big wedge in our community. So I believe that our success as a committee here lies not in grandstanding or pursuing personal gains, but in dictating ourselves to a betterment of the city. By approaching, and I know I'm dictating to the choir here, by approaching this update with a sincere focus on serving our community, we can build a legacy that can truly affect our community and our public. So I believe that working together, we can really attain that. I've always said we probably have one of the best city councils. We've had probably one of the best legislators and also staff we've ever had. But that doesn't mean that I want to keep any council member from bringing in items before the city council. But we should do it in an orderly manner, something that's going to help us here locally and not worldwide, because really that's really for other people, in my opinion, to work at. So I believe that I'd like to have staff work on that paragraph on page 7 and combine it with a paragraph on page 10 down in the bottom that talks about bringing an agenda item before the city council. And under the item 10, it briefly says that a council member can bring an item, or request an item be brought over to the city council. And then, and number 2, submit a detailed request in writing to the city clerk. And right there in that place, I think, what ramifications or what implications will it have, and what unintended consequences we're going to have as a result of whatever that council member brings. Again, I don't want to stop anybody from bringing any agenda items to it, because this is their right. And always believe, too, that I, as mayor, not have any more power than other council members, but only my job is only to convey the well-being or whatever the city council is looking at and our policies. So, but I believe that I would like to have staff, I would like to direct staff to look at those 2 items, council members, Councilmember Basula. How do we continue working with worldwide issues or with local issues, which I think is really how we got elected here for? And also, how do we bring this agenda item, and what impact or what ramifications or unintended consequences are we going to have as a result of bringing that issue, before the committee and on to the city council? So that's basically those 2 items is what I'd like to see is staff work on, Councilmember Teran and Councilwoman Basua. And basically that's all. And by the way, and I just want to thank our city attorney and council members for all this beautiful punctuations and commas and periods. and really actually coming up with definitions that are clear and understandable for all of us. So that's basically all I have at this time. Councilmember.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate your take and input on those items or on those 2 paragraphs. I would like to respectfully add just some counterpoints to that, if I may.
Okay.
I absolutely understand the intention and thought behind the direction on addressing those portions of the procedures manual and what types of issues the city council is intended to take on. And when we look at municipal functions, I mean, those are pretty objective. Our enterprise rates and our roads and funding the, repair and maintenance of those, and our parks and our recreation programs and public safety. And for municipal functions, absolutely, that makes a whole lot of sense. For social issues or things that are broader in scope, I know I made this similar statement at the last committee meeting where we've taken on items that are beyond municipal functions, such as prior to my time on the council, establishing Oxnard as a safe city for undocumented residents and cooperation with ICE back in that time. A resolution supporting the LGBTQ plus community and recognizing the hate and discrimination and crimes and violence that are committed against them, as well as our AAPI, Asian American and Pacific Islander community. And also we've taken on reproductive rights. All of those items are beyond the objective municipal functions of the city, but they are items that do affect people who live in the city of Oxnard. And I think language around divisive issues, I think it might be a bit too broad because we have our environmental resources and that enterprise fund coming up for rate study. That could be a divisive issue for all we know. It's a municipal function, but it could certainly divide people, those who wish for the rates to be set where they need to be and those who want to keep them where they are. I mean, by definition, that could be divisive. But I understand that's a municipal function versus what we had a couple weeks ago. But I would want to caution us from narrowing it to where we're not able to address issues that are maybe of a national or global nature that affect people. In the future, or even in current times, what if we want to establish a resolution in support of refugees who are fleeing atrocities elsewhere in the world? And that's just my 2 cents on that. Okay. I understand where you're coming from with it, and I respect it, but I just wanted to add my portion as to why I have this mindset.
It's a good point. My intent is not to, those issues that LGBTQ and all, those are local issues. Those are local issues that are right here in Oxnard. And I don't mind taking up those issues. I think those are important. Global issues like the one we had the other day, global issues that we have really no control over. Those global issues that we had individuals here that if we would have continued, we probably would have had physical fights and so forth. Those are the kind of things that I'm talking, not having the ER utility, that I don't see. It'd be divisive to the point that people don't want to pay any more money, but those are issues that we have to take up as councilmen. We were voted, elected to do that. Those are hard issues that I believe need to be taken up. Is it global issues that have no control over it? Those are issues that I was concerned about. And what are the ramifications, unintended consequences for taking those type of issues? But local issues, sure, man, we deal with them all the time. We have to. And we are the policymakers that make decisions for that. But those could be divisive in a different, not divisive in a form that's going to divide ethnic groups and groups, those are issues that all of us are going to be concerned about because nobody wants to pay taxes, nobody. But however, we need to keep those utilities and other in a solvency issue. Otherwise, we can't control. It's a business. But that's what I'm talking about.
Understood. And I don't mind paying taxes because I see what I get from it. But I guess I should clarify that my statement was more around the use of a term like divisive. If we include that in there, I mean, the definition of that word in itself, I think we should look at language if you're proposing it.
No, I'm not sure we have to use the word divisive. Okay. But like I said, those issues can be divisive. Okay. Can be, and we don't need that. We don't need as local officials. Now, if we want to look at that, then I'd run for Congress or the president, I believe like that. But anyway, I think those are issues that I'm talking about. Okay. And I want staff to look at it. I want staff to to look at it and see what we can come up with. Maybe we can combine some of those two items together, I don't know. Steve and Alex, Okay. Those are my comments.
Well, thank you to you both, to Mayor and to Council Member Tehran. I when I hear decisive issues, what I don't like is when we're bringing things to the council that have to do with religion. And that's
another one.
and that's I think where we really, we pin people against each other, and that's not okay. I mean, we had our Jewish community here, and then we had other people here, and it was just the disrespectfulness from one side was, at least for me, that is not a community I want to be a part of. Nor do I want anything to do with that. That's just, it's not okay. Things of LGBTQ, the hate for the Asian America, those affect us here.
Absolutely.
Those affect us here. And those are, I believe, at least I believe that A, I'm no one to judge, and B, I'm here to treat everybody equally, regardless of who you are. So if we want to take a stance, or like immigration, right? We have a lot of farm workers here.
That's right.
If we want to say you are safe here because Oxnard PD is not immigration, we're just making it known that that's who we are. When we're dealing with global issues that have nothing to do with the environment and have nothing that we can do, and only brings more hate, more divide, and really the way I feel is that when we do that, we also put other people that we're supposed to protect in harm's way. I would just like to stay away from all that. I would really like to stay away from all that. So if there is a way we can word it in order to be able to do what we can for the people that we serve in the city of Oxnard, I would really like to stick to those issues. Not that a council member can't go and do other things outside of the dais. I encourage that. I'm really big on sports and stuff. I do stuff outside of here. So, I mean, I would encourage all of us to, continue our passion, but we have a role here as council members, and it is to serve Oxnard. And when we are driving down Ventura Road, Rose Avenue, and we see our streets that need paving, and we see that, we can't do this because we have a lawsuit going on. I think those are the things that, to me, are very, very important. Keeping water, electricity, our police department, our fire, our public works, everybody being able to continue to do the work that a lot of people don't realize, the amount of work that it takes for water to get us clean water, and all the regulations that they have to go through.
And the wastewater and the refuse.
Right, and the trash, and all the new regulations coming down. It is a lot of work. So I want to stick to that. I want to stick, to issues that impact us here, and be that cheerleader that our staff needs in order to get things moving. So I just don't want what happened a few weeks ago to happen again. It's not good, especially when we've got, and I'm going to be completely honest, I'm thinking when that incident happened with us, I'm thinking we just had a murder on January 1st.
I know.
We should be focused on healing our community, and we lose focus on our community. We need to focus on our community. Those are my comments, but I respect both of you, and your comments, and I would encourage all of us, to continue with our passion, not only up here on the dais, but outside the dais.
Before I go to our city manager, I just see one of the things that I was looking at is historically Oxnard City Council have chosen not to take positions outside of its immediate authority. To me, that's extremely important. That's council member, that's why I was bringing those things up, and not immediate stuff like you were talking about, because those are immediate, those are local issues, and Councilwoman, I really appreciate your comments too, so. Mr. City Manager, I see your, City Attorney?
That's my button.
Okay,
So to follow up on one thing Member Basua just mentioned, on page 18 of the manual, that gets into what an individual council member can do, sometimes referencing city letterhead, you know,
speaking
if
for the
they
city.
want to speak out on issues that the council has not yet or will not take a position on, they are free to do that, and that's built into Chapter 4 on council communications.
and they have to share that they're speaking for themselves and not for the council.
Correct.
Okay, Councilman Turan?
Yes, thank you both for the discussion on that. I appreciate both points of view and how respectfully and thought out you had stated them. I'll just state for the record that from my point of view, anything that happens anywhere in this world, we don't have walls or a bubble or a dome over Oxnard. Things happen regionally, nationally, globally that affect us as a ripple effect, that affect us directly and indirectly. And I mean, there were people in the audience even 2 weeks ago who either were from or had family from any side of the conflict that we have right now happening in Gaza. And so I'm just using that as a very specific example that we know people, whether we know it or not, who are directly affected by this or indirectly affected. And there's any number of things happening globally that do affect this community one way or another. And so I appreciate the conversation on it. I respect both points on that. I've made my points. I will close by saying that in the portion that the city attorney just pointed out to us, I have given credit to Councilmember Perello where I think it was in November where folks were asking about this resolution and items not on the agenda. Councilmember Perello did take it upon himself from the dais in council member comments to state his stance on opposing atrocities happening in Gaza, in Sudan, in Congo, and saying how he as an individual felt about that and how, anything happening anywhere in the world, how he feels about that and how it affects him and how he hopes for world peace. And I've heard Mayor Pro Tem say something similar. So I think that goes along the line with that, and happy to take that stance and position whenever needed. But thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely, that's commendable, but I think the question is, we need to protect our people here. That's the whole idea, protect our people here, because they don't have, the opportunity to go out and campaign for X or for Y, but it's just to take care of our people, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So I respect both of you. Thank you so much. So any additional information, Steve, you might need from us, Mr. City Attorney, or any comments from our city manager?
Well, it would be helpful, particularly for Member Turan, to, if you could distill your proposed revisions to me in writing, so I don't have to sit with the video and spend a lunch or two transcribing them. That would be helpful, and I'll contact Commissioner Araujo to see if he can put what he will be proposing in writing. That would help with this process.
Sure. I thought you were going to review it right
Mr.
after the
Fish-
meeting.
Yeah,
Watch it all over again.
Mr. Fisher, we wanted you to hear our comments all over again.
And so anyway, so then we'll continue this for some time in the future then.
And Mayor.
Correct. As business allows, I understand our next agenda is going to be packed with other business.
It might
but-
be, we'll leave it up to the city manager and look at their schedules first, and then we can go from there.
Yes.
As opposed to setting up a time certain. Go ahead.
And I will send you my notes in writing.
Thank you. And there is no set timeline on this either.
That's right.
So
That's
we're doing what the manual envisions. So we'll take it. It'll take as long as it takes, I guess.
Okay, our next item, any future items not in the agenda? Go ahead.
I do have something, and this doesn't have to come right away, but if we could get an update on the state auditor's report for the city of Oxnard and their financial risk. I think previously we were at number 8 and we're now at number 100. Pretty, oh no, is that not accurate?
And they actually no longer publish it.
They don't-
Oh.
That's been removed.
Okay.
Well,
But-
I should have
but we-
screenshotted it when I saw it
But
then.
we can wrap it into our budget discussion.
That'd be great if
Let's
we could
come in
get
for-
some semblance of an update on that.
A mid-year budget's be coming up too.
It's a pretty big move for 1 year to go from 8 to 100, so.
Yes.
Okay, so no future agenda items?
Nope.
No? Okay. We are adjourned. Thank you.